Hello and welcome to lesson 1 of week 14. In this lesson, we're going to look at object-oriented programming in Python. My name is Mildred. Object-oriented programming is just a paradigm or just a method of structuring programs by building related properties and behaviors into individual objects. And it is a modern way or approach to creating like a blueprint in a class from which we can create unique objects. Now, the best way to explain this is to use real-world examples, and you're going to see this a lot in your programming journey. Let's say, for instance, we have a school. In the school, we have students. We want to make these students a class since we have several students, and we want to create objects which are individual students from this class. So we have students. Each student will have properties. And the properties they will have is like their name. We want to have their age or their date of birth. We want to have their height and maybe their race. So these are examples. All of them have behaviors which we'll call methods. How they eat, sleep, study, play. So in this lesson, let's focus on the properties and how to define properties for a class. And then we're going to go further to look at how to instantiate a class and create unique objects from the class. We use a student example. We can do something like emails. Emails have subjects, they have recipients, they have the body as properties. They have methods like attachments, attach a file to the email. We have things like a car has a model, a color, a brand, a weight, and then the speed and all other stuff is going to be like the unique the behaviors that vary from car to car, person to person, and so on. So the general idea is to say that we have a class that holds properties that every member of that class has, but the value of these properties is what differs from person to person. Everybody has a name, an age, height, and a race, but the values differ. The different things they eat, different ways they sleep, different study pattern, different play pattern. These are all behaviors or methods for the classes. In Python, we create a class using the class keyword and then a name of a class. So let's say students. When we create a class, we use built-in function called init, and this init built-in function is a function that is called automatically anytime we create a new object of the class, and it is used to assign values to object properties. So let's say we define a function def _init _, in pair of parentheses, and then we decide what it is that will go in the pair of parentheses. The properties that we defined are the things we place in the pair of parentheses. If you're coming from course 1, you see in JavaScript we use the this keyword, THIS in JavaScript, and we said that this keyword refers to an object that is executing the current piece of code or references the object that is executing the current function. That is in JavaScript. It's the same idea in Python, but instead of this, we use self. And what self means is just a reference to the current instance of the class and is used to access the variables that belong to the class. So let's create the student properties. Every student has a name. We have age. We want to use the height, and then we want to use the race. We want to define the values for this. And so we want to say self.name is equal to name. So the parameter that is passed into the object called definition is going to result into the name. For age, it will be age. For height, it will be height. And then self.race will be equal to race. We have created a class and we've created properties for the class. Let's try this without having to create a string representation first. We want to now start defining each student. Let's say person 1. We'll call the class name, which is student, and we'll supply the properties for person 1. For person 2, we do the same thing. For person 3, we do the same thing. We can do person 4 up to the last person. So every time we want to add a new student to a class, we just call the student object and supply all of the values, the name, the age, the height, and the race for the person. And here we can come and say print person1.name, print person2.age, print person3.height. So we just want to print one value from each of these properties of the person. So we should have John has person1.name, we should have 25 has person2.age, and we should have 1.90 has person3.height. And when I save this and I run, we have it printed, John 25 1.9. And so this is how we create a class and we create objects from the class. So each of these person 1, person 2, person 3 are objects from the class definition. So let's go over this again. We define a class using the class keyword and then a name for the class. The convention, the class is all written class lowercase letter, and the name of the class we want to start with an uppercase letter. You want to give it a meaningful name that represents what blueprint that class holds. We want to use the init function, which is an inbuilt Python function, to supply the values for the properties for that class. And so when it is instantiated, this init is called automatically to help you provide values for the properties of each unique object that you call or that you define. And then we can print them by saying the name of the variable that holds the object dot the property name, the name dot property name, and this is how we do it. We can say we want to have a string representation function, and is written using the string _str, and then in the pair of parentheses you always want to use self so that you can use it to define or reference something. And what we want to return here, let's say for instance I want to return, let's use the format string, I want to return the name of the person, so I'll say self.name, and I want to put a colon after the person's name and return every other thing like the age, height and race, so we'll know who has these values, right? So say self.name, a colon, self.age. If you have forgotten how to use format string, refer back to previous lessons. And then we have self.height, and then we have self.race. There are different ways to do this or to represent, but we're using a return statement to say we want to return string representation of whatever we call. And so here, instead of printing person1.name, let me just print person1, and so I'll see everything that I have written down. Person2, person3. And when I save this and I clear and run, I'm going to have John 36 1.8 white, Mary 25 1.7 black, Bob 40 1.9 Asian. And so this is how we create class and object from classes. In the next lesson, we are going to go further to look at object methods and inheritance in Python. Thank you and see you in the next lesson.